Hello, fellow cinephiles, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Talk Film to Me podcast, where we talk about films in Kenya and beyond. I'm your host, Nkatha. Let's talk film. So, I am going to start today's review with a question. What would you say if somebody told you that for the next 12 years, every end month, I am going to send you $22 for the next 12 years? Would you say yes, or would you say no? Or would you, of course, have a few questions to ask to gauge what you would answer? And would this change your life? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Today's review is a review of a documentary called Free Money. Free Money is directed by Sam Soko of LBX. So if you watch Softy, you've definitely heard of the name Sam Soko. And Lauren De Filippo, who I heard about her from Red Heaven, which is a documentary about 6 people who went to live on Mars for 1 year. It's very interesting. You should watch it. Hopefully we get to review it sometime. And of course, Softy. Softy, honestly, I would say, was one of the most immersive films I've ever watched. But we're talking about Free Money. So Free Money first premiered in TIFF. TIFF stands for Toronto International Film Festival in September 2022. This film is on Netflix. So again, if you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. I would blindly like to think, that most of us can access Netflix. So it's a film we can access and watch. This film, I would say, has a very interesting turn and twist to it. It does not, when you watch the film, you do not get a very conclusive decision. You do not know what the filmmaker thinks. The filmmaker leaves you with that choice to make for yourself. Like, do you agree with this? Do you think it's right? Do you think it's wrong? For me, first of all, that's a very interesting aspect of this film. So the people of Kogutu were to receive, or rather are receiving, because it's still happening, are receiving UBI. UBI stands for Universal Basic Income, from a non-governmental organization called Give Directly. Now, as the name suggests, that's just what they do. Give Directly is co-founded by the ever-smiling Michael Fire. I think I read that somewhere. Somebody called him Smiley. Well, most of the film, this guy was smiling, even though he was saying nonsense, according to me, or rather in my opinion. But this organization believed that instead of, going to find a solution for these people, just give them the money. They know exactly what they need. Because obviously we can agree we do not have the same needs and wants. Obviously we have the basic ones, and then as our needs progress now to secondary, we all want different things. You probably want an Audi. I don't know why that came to my mind first. I want a mango, like right now. I think they're in season, no? But yeah, that was the argument, that we all want different things. So just give people money, and then they can decide what to buy for themselves. Just give directly. Now, this concept, Andrew Yang, who was vying for presidency in the United States of America, once mentioned it. And of course, everybody thought that's such a stupid idea. But at some point also, Elon Musk says that it's inevitable. At some point in this world, we'll have to consider UBI. Now, here are some interesting facts and numbers. So apparently, the world's GDP is about 100 trillion. And to alleviate poverty, we just need 0.01% of that. Now, if you were asked to give that, if you had the 100 trillion and you were asked to give that to alleviate poverty, Isn't that the easiest thing to do? Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's have everyone live a good life, a comfortable life. Let's equate everyone. But sadly, life is not like that. And Larry is also a part of this documentary. And I would honestly say Larry is my voice in this film. He asked some of the questions that I also wanted to ask. But let's start with how this process starts. So there's Carol Ateti, who is a correspondent for Give Directly. I know you guys can hear Ellie in the background. He really wants to be part of the podcast, so just allow him. He's also giving his own opinion. And if you're new here, Ellie's my cat. um, so like I was saying, so in the first year, the registration process rather, Carol Ateti is a correspondent for Give Directly, and as her name suggests, she is from that community. She can speak that language. So she goes there and talks to the people and tells them that some people in US want to give you guys money for the next 12 years, $22, yada yada. She takes them through the process. And of course, the same way I asked you the question and all of you had mixed reactions and different answers, these people were the same. Like, yes, of course, some were like, yes, give me free money. Others were like, no, I don't trust things that are just free. Others, of course, had questions to ask, like, why are you giving us money for free? Are you sure there's nothing that you'll ask for from us in the end? Obviously, these are the questions you would ask if somebody wanted to give you money for free. So Carol really manages to talk to the people, just tell them some people just want to see you doing well. You know, she has a sweet tongue, I would say. She has a sweet tongue. She manages to talk to the people and all of that. And the process of registration starts. These people, we could see the officers from Give Directly collecting data, tell us who's coming to the village very recently. As soon as they had Give Directly was coming here to give people money, and tell us if you hear anyone who's just, like a surveillance sort of thing. They take pictures of their houses. We see them taking pictures of these people. Of course, there are details like, I think, ID number, all of that. Maybe let's say it was to send money. But they basically just go through the process. And like I've said, of course, people had different opinions of why they were going to receive money. And we see one scene at the church where people ask and the pastor says, it's not bad to receive money as long as ulete nini kwenye kanisa? Tithe. Bring 10% of it. Bring 10% of it to the church. So it's really interesting, this whole process, and that was one thing that really caught me. The church there just doesn't care. I mean, God says maybe the pastor thought that this was God's way of helping you, so it's okay. Yeah. So the first year of the process, the people started receiving the UBI in 2017. Like I said, this process will go on for the next 12 years, and it will actually end in 2031. That's when they'll stop receiving the money. We all know there was COVID in between, so we can't ignore that part. So the first year goes, and we can already see the changes happening. We can see families growing. Somebody, after a couple of years, one of them has expanded his house. He now has a dining room. One lady has bought a cow. The cow has given birth to a calf. Positive things, positive things. And then one thing to note, the women now have economic autonomy. Before, it was very like money would go into the man's account, or only the man in the family would earn money. But now even the women are receiving money, let alone that. Even some of the 18-year-old kids. And I remember seeing one family of John Omondi. I'm not sure whether that was his name, but I'm sure he was Omondi. I just can't remember his first name. And I remember his father saying that we need to put together and to put together the money. And Omondi says my father is very controlling. I mean, most of us can relate to that. Most of us can relate to that. But um, two other people to note, two people that I really wanted to know their story like from beginning to the end. Jael Ryle and this guy Omondi. So Jael Ryle, her story, man, yeah, real trigger, that story, real trigger. So Jael is, by some chance, she's not enrolled into this program. Do we know why? No. So they start by saying that at the time, maybe she probably moved into this village when she heard that the money was being given, which sounds crazy to me. It sounds crazy. She was probably maybe 16, thereabout. Her mother lives in this village. We've seen her mom. Her mom has been enrolled into the program. We see her grandmother. Where would a 16-year-old be living? I honestly felt like it was not even a bit unfair. It was very unfair. So they take her back and forth and they say that there are some technical difficulties into getting her, or rather enrolling her into the program, and she doesn't make the cut. You should have seen how, like, if you see how broken Jael was, you'd understand how broken she was. Just that, like, you'd feel for her, because these people came here, they promised her something, and they're not giving her that something. It was the most heartbreaking scene to watch. And for her, like, her mom didn't have enough money to raise school fees. And this was her hope. This Give Directly fund was her hope that my mom would get money. She could see her peers going to school and all of that. And there are a few scenes where we can see the peers hanging out. And we'll come to the ethical shooting bit of some scenes there. But we can literally see her peers going to school and she's not. And it really hurt her. It hurt me, man. It was just so sad to see. So sad to see. I would say this is the most morally ambiguous film I've ever watched. Because in the same breath, I can see how Give Directly is helping these people while breaking others. Because we can't ignore the fact that, so one interesting thing to note, we can't ignore the fact that the people of Kogutu definitely have neighbors. They're neighboring villages. And it was actually mentioned by one of the characters that this village is divided from the other by just a stream. I'm sure in your shags, like, there's a stream could even just divide your shamba from the other person's shamba, or it could also just be passing through your own shamba. So for them, it was like that. But they said, we are only taking Kogutu, and I remember this word, random selection. Ay. Trigger, guys. Trigger. Random selection. By the way, me, in my opinion, I thought that they specifically chose not to put Jael in this program as part of the experiment, to see whether Ellie, stop that. I'm sorry about that. To see whether, or rather, to see how one person would be different from the others who are receiving money in the same community. I could be wrong, but that's just how I saw it. Because this whole thing was an experiment. And like I said, Larry is my voice in this film, and Larry asked a lot of questions. He went to Fire and asked him, because Larry has grown up in a village not far from Kogutu, so he understands this community very well. He understands the terrain, everything, like anajua pa kwa ground. And this guy now works at that time he was working in BBC, right now CNN. And he understands also, like, the upper West World. And also it was very angry because we never saw Michael Fire out of his office. Karawateti tu ndo anaenda kwa ground, anaongelesha hawa watu and decides, oh, no, it's not happening. Clear, honestly, for that whole thing just made it look like, for this guy, it was just an experiment. Kogutu village is just a petri dish, and he's mixing in things, just putting in things to see the reactions. And Larry asked him, so you're doing an experiment on people? And he's like, it's not an experiment, it's just research and development, research and study. I was like, mm-mm. And I liked all the questions that Larry asks him, because this guy is unable to answer. Like, we could see he does not have a conclusive answer. He doesn't have any answers to give Larry that makes sense or hold water or hold weight. We could see that. And Larry actually jokes to him and tells him, in Kenya, we have the notion that non-governmental organization stands for nothing going on, NGO. And this guy says, ha ha ha, I did not know that. Because apparently there was this NGO that went to a village still in that part, which is something I should have mentioned. When Carol was going to talk to these people, he mentioned, I know you've had so many visitors. Do you know what these visitors are? Different NGOs coming, trying, all in the name of quote unquote, we are helping you. And they're not helping these people, because this NGO went to a certain village there and they told people, build houses and then we'll come and do the roofing for you. Of course, if somebody tells you they're going to do that for you, roofing is not cheap. I don't know what kind of roofing they were promised, but I know with every type of roofing, it's a different budget. So people went into debt. Some borrowed money, some sold their cows. You know, now, when it came to time to put up the roof, the NGOs nowhere to be seen. Completely gone. They can't find them. Triggering. Imagine you sold everything, umejenga, uko na tu nyumba lakini hakuna roof, so you can't of course sleep there, utanyeshewa, you know, all aspects of the weather. And of course I could understand when the people of Kogutu were a bit skeptical about it. So Michael, via being asked that question, he's like, I don't know. And you can tell for him, it just looks like a study, and it just goes against human nature. I would just say that. Again, like I said, morally ambiguous. Yani, you can't just say whether this is wrong or this is right. Because some money is better than no money at all. Because we've seen the positive outcomes that this money has brought into this community. But at the same time, we can't ignore the human bit of it that is taken a bit away. It has some sort of white saviorism, because Give directly literally plays God. We are coming here to save the Africans. We're going to help you alleviate poverty. There's nothing wrong with the idea. I just don't think it's sustainable. And I think Michael did admit that as much as we'd want to continue, it's not in a perfect world, the 12 years would never end. But sadly it will. So which leads me to think, at the end of these 12 years, have these people found new ways of getting through life, or they've just been lured into complacency? Wamesema tu, after hizo 12 years tutafikiria venye kutaenda, but for now let's enjoy the $22. Again, we all know the standards of living are not getting any lower. They keep going higher and higher. And so obviously, even though they're receiving this money, let's assume if they receive the $22, now since of course the dollar against the Kenyan shilling is a bit better if you're getting money in dollars, let's hope they're getting a bit more, you know? I don't know, I just hope they're getting a bit more. And one instance that this really manifests in is of that guy, John Omondi. So John, at the time of the registration, at the time of the beginning of this process, he's just turned 18, and he comes to Nairobi to school. I remember his actually, there were some that were really heartwarming, where he says, I'm going to Nairobi, my school, my classes are in a tower, I get on a lift to get to class, things he's never experienced, things that make him happy. And of course, he's also receiving the $22. Now, Nairobi and Kogutu, far apart. of course, the standards are not the same. And we can see the scene where he goes to a shop with a big chain on his neck. He's wearing some, and he says, give me some designer jeans. Kambo washikai, and we see him paying for it with 2,000. In my head, I'm like, so baksha 280 bob, because we know at that time it was 2,280. I'm just like, yeah. Spesa imeisha, yeah, month, yote. So obviously, you could tell that for somebody like John, the money was not going to be enough. The needs in Nairobi, your needs are different because you need accommodation, you need to eat, you need to dress up. This boy is in campus. I know the pressure is real. The pressure is real to look good, look nice, smell good. Probably take one or two, go out with your friends or take one or two people out, something like that. We never, of course, get really immersed into his life. But I'm just thinking that, of course, he went through normal things that a campus, or rather a campus student would go through. And we can see at the end him calling his mom. He tries, what is it called? Being a barber. Although we only see one scene. I wish we saw more of that for it to stay. It just felt like he tried it out. It didn't feel like he did try it and then saw that it wasn't working. We just saw one scene. So ilikuwa inakaa tu acha leo njaribu kunyoa nione kama nitapata pesa. Of course, it doesn't make sense. When you're looking for money, it takes time, doesn't it? Although I believe in the supernatural. But yeah, that's like we only see him once, and you're like, okay, I wish we saw more of that. And in the end, he calls his mom, hi mom, I'm broke, I am thinking of coming back home. And I think eventually the boy goes home, which leaves us thinking, what about school? Did he finish school? What happened? I wish we had a conclusive scene for us, or rather scenes that would help us make out what happened in the end. Something else to note. The film takes, I don't know how to put this, but there's a lot of poverty porn. By poverty porn, I mean we're just showing sad scenes. If we are happy, we are happy. Like, there are heartwarming scenes for sure. But compared to the sad scenes, there are so many. Because this film is set, we're seeing the people in Kogutu, how they are living their life, and then we go to the streets of New York immediately. Do you know what a contrast that is? Like Kogutu to New York, hata si Nairobi, hata si Kisumu hapo, hata si Nairobi, New York. And then there's this also interesting thing. The people of Kogutu, those who are receiving the money from Give Directly, are getting preferential treatment at the market. Now think of this as a human. If one community is getting preferential treatment or is getting money, it's literally preferential treatment, is getting money and the other isn't. Of course, there are going to be problems because that the other village was wondering, what is special with the people of Kogutu that they got it and we don't? And these people are going through the same problems. Again, I understand. Maybe they don't have the budget to give all those people money. But it's really, really unfair. It's really unfair. And the poverty porn, like I said, is something that you can't ignore. Just, it's like that feeling of we're trying to empathize. Oh my God. I don't know why people love sad stories, and just coming to watch something like that brings that out. And another thing, ruthless show of emotions. This is something I also don't agree with, and it makes me think, are there ethics of shooting in this film that were not followed? I remember when Giles' mom was crying because she said that she had a problem with her hand and she was selling chapati in the market, and now she can't do that, so she can't raise enough money for Giles to go to school, and she's really hoping that Giles is actually enrolled into the program. And she cries, and immediately the camera zooms in. I was like, come on, that's so unfair. It was a very uncomfortable scene to watch because we literally just moved in the minute tears started coming out. I honestly don't know what to feel about that. This film, I would say, is is a conversation starter. And I hope there's going to be like more, like there's going to be a series, like a part where we see how it ends up in 2031. Obviously we want to see how each of these people's life ends up, because I've already asked you this question. Imagine after 12 years now you've been receiving this money, what would happen to you in the end? Do you think you'll use this money to change your life, ama you'll just get used to just receiving? My dad has this line where he tells us, if I give you, you will get used to me giving you, so you won't have work hard for yours. So acha nikunyime, you work for yours, and then you will know the pain of looking for something that is your own. So I think for these people it's the same. Instead of being given the fishing rod and the bait, they were given the fish. Do you think these people will know how to fish? I don't know. A heartwarming scene I saw is when the community, they're smart. They form a merry-go-round circle, rather what we call a chama. So they form a chama and they are pulling their money, and at least we can see that through this money, people are able to make good progress. This is how most of them end up like making big, because we see Giles' grandmother, I think, yeah, she puts water into her compound now, so she doesn't have. Before she says that she had to go fetch water from the river, but now there's water in the compound. That's something nice, you know. If they were not receiving this money, hiyo maji ingekuwa hapo. So we can't ignore that. And also, like I was saying, the heartwarming scene is Giles' mother also now becomes one person who's receiving the money at the end of the merry-go-round. Akapata pesa from chama peleka Giles shule. And was really heartwarming to see, even though didn't give directly to Giles, at least she benefited from it through the community. So at least that gives me hope that these people will actually, help themselves. But it's not easy. You just can't ignore the implications that it brings. Now, here for this part, I'll just now ask a lot of questions. Hopefully I'll be able to ask them as I go by, but I also want you to think about it and think whether you have answers for me. Let me know in the comment section or on Instagram at hey Lile Nkata Lile. I'd really like to engage you in this conversation. Do you think that this program would have been better if it was state controlled? Well, I watched this film with my friend, and he told me that he would have been more comfortable if this film was not this film, if this program was controlled by the government and the money was coming from taxpayers, which would mean like it's a continuous program. It doesn't end after 12 years. Knowing our government, knowing the Kenyan government and how greedy most people in power are, would you really, really trust the state? Would you? I don't think so. Obviously, like I also agree with him. I agree with him that if it was state control, it would have definitely been better, because I think of how it would have been implemented, not just one village like Kogutu, the way it was picked, and then surrounding villages are getting nothing. Several. But with our current government, I personally have no trust in it. We don't trust this government. We just know that person is going to potea in some people's pockets. And by the time it gets to the people, it was probably supposed to be $22. It's like $5. Because it's been eaten and eaten and eaten from the topmost going all the way down. So I don't think so. That's just hard to to think about. Another thing, do you think it goes against the rights of a human? Because, for example, because of what happened to Jael was promised that she was going to be part of this program. But because of reasons that we do not understand, honestly, they gave some basic answers. I was like, no, tell us why. Tell us why this girl is not in the program. How she felt, it's like, I wish Michael Fay would understand. Do you understand that you just not giving that $22, it could change their life, is affecting a human being? Which again brings me to the point of white saviorism. Like, for them, it was just like, we're helping people. They don't see these people as humans. To them, it's just an experiment, and they're just coming to save them because they know the problem, they have the solutions. I don't think it's gonna work. Honestly, I don't think so. I like I said again, I can't ignore the number of people it has helped, but it's definitely not a permanent solution. It's a solution for probably the 12 years, and not the entire 12 years, but it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable solution. Another question. Do you think this experiment emboldens the villagers to find new ways of sustaining themselves? Or do you think like they just become chill and comfortable and just wait for the end month? Because in one scene, especially the first, I think it was the first year, I remember, I think it was John's family. They're all seated around waiting for the money, and they all say, they said the money would come at 4:30. It is already 4:30, and then that phone beeps. You could, I wish you just saw the joy in those people's face. If you haven't watched the film, go watch it. Because when these people were happy, like, you felt their happiness. And when they were sad, it was so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. I'd like to say, like, good props to for them capturing those emotions. It was really, really well displayed. You could see how happy they were to receive the money. But that's the thing, because I don't think the people of Kogutu were starving before Give Directly came, but I definitely know it was hard for them to put food on the table. I do not dispute that. Did Give Directly help? Yes, it made it easier to put food on the table, but it's just that it's $22. I don't know if these people were not smart enough to come up with a chama. I don't know what that money would have been able to, I don't know how much change it can bring to their lives. I really don't. So this film just is a lot of mind-boggling questions that you have to ask yourself. Do you think it's sustainable? If somebody told me they were going to give me $22, of course I want free money. Aha, another thing. Also, my friend mentioned this when we were watching the film. These people are taking data. Do you say data or data? Depends on who was your English teacher. These people are taking data. They're taking your, of course, name, ID number, where you were born, how old are you, all those things, and taking pictures of you and your houses. Is it really only to track that? It's an experiment. Of course, there's something you're studying. And for me, that's what felt like Michael was not being very honest. It felt like he was hiding something. This whole process did not feel very transparent, this whole program. And one thing to note is that Give Directly is the fastest growing NGO. Second or fast? Fastest or second fastest? I am not so sure which of those, but it is a very high growing NGO, which makes you think, I don't know if you're asking yourself the same question I'm asking, because people are giving money to Give Directly. There are people who are constantly sending their funds. It's like the same way we do here in Kenya. If somebody has a problem, they put up a pay bill number or a till number on their WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and we changia for them. We pull funds together and we say, here you go, help yourself. Me 100 bob, another person 50 bob, another person 10,000, and at the end we've helped this person. So Give Directly is also receiving money. I just don't know whether it's making a big impact, and I don't know whether this process is right or wrong. Giving money for free for 12 years. When you watch the film, there are a series of interviews, and there's this woman who says that you're just being given money to exist. Poverty is terrible. Poverty is hard. And we all know this. If you're part of the middle class, you're just one medical problem from being poor. And by poor, I mean poor, broke, bankrupt. And it's not just in Kenya. Even in the United States of America, I have read this somewhere, it's statistically proven. Like, medical bills can just, boop, finish you. And you just think, in 12 years, I really want to see how the lives of these people would have changed. Is their life any better? Is it different? After they stop receiving this money, what happens? Have they found new ways to make their lives better, or continue living how they were? Or they just slowly decline back to the poverty line where they were before Give Directly came? So many questions to ask, guys. So many questions to ask. It's honestly a very mind-boggling film, I would say. I watched it and I thought at the end that I would honestly have like a say this is wrong, it should not happen, or say this is right and they should continue doing it. I cannot, because I've seen the positive outcome. At the same time, I am not going to ignore the impact it has on these people negatively. So basically, I don't know what to say. If I'm rating this documentary, I would rate it an 8. An 8. I would say because of the message. It's a really strong story. It's a really inakufanya ufikirie na bado mimi nimefikiria and I have not come up with an answer to say yes, right, no, wrong. At the same time, I just think their shooting ethics for some scenes, I was just so uncomfortable with seeing how they treated these people's emotions. When it's fiction, I guess it's fine. When it's a documentary, this is somebody's real life. That's totally different. It just feels like we are violating a right of theirs. I don't know what's right, but it just feels like some sort of violation. So I would definitely just give it an 8. It's a really good film. It's a really good conversation starter, and I can't wait to watch the next part and see how these people end up. So that would be all for today. Those are my thoughts on Free Money. Congratulations to the filmmakers, to Sam Soko and Lauren De Filippo, for bringing this into our eyes. Because honestly, if I would not have watched this documentary, I would not have known such an experiment is going on in Kenya. Never have known. You wouldn't have either. You wouldn't have. So it's really good that such stories are brought to our eyes. As much as we talk about fictional films, it's also good to watch the documentaries and know what's literally happening in our country. And if you're a filmmaker, look for stories around you that nobody is telling, and tell them. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it to this part, hey Ngapa. If you've made it to this part, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Remember, you can find my podcast here on Spotify, on Google Podcast, or on Pocket Cast. Also, remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, now X, keep forgetting, Facebook, and TikTok. Please share, leave a comment, hit the notification bell button, And I'll see you next week on Monday at 10 a.m. for the next episode. And it's a wrap. Bye!